Chapter 71 The Birth of the Emperor. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Boom. Boom boom boom. What's the situation? Who broke through, and then again, and again? And again? Oh my God, are you kidding me? That at this time, everyone in the Taigon Holy Land looked shocked and frightened as they looked at the bright lights that continuously shot up on Iran Peak after breaking through the realm. After practicing hard, it is normal to have a breakthrough, but it would be incredible to keep making breakthroughs for a period of time. The people on Iran Peak must have received help from the young master, so they kept making breakthroughs. That's okay. Is the young master a god? That everyone was frightened when they saw it, but they couldn't help but look fascinated. I really want to go to Iran Peak to accompany the young master and live with him. Who wouldn't? Come on you guys. Are you as beautiful and elegant as the young master's mascot? Are you as delicate and cute as junior sister Su Su? Why do you think so? Just because you are so good at thinking? Huh, junior brother, it's better to dream less. If you think wrongly, you may be disabled for the rest of your life. Brother, I can't even think about it. That is, as long as we follow the young master loyally, we will definitely have soup to drink. Don't just think about it. If you have nothing to do in the future, you should go around Iran Peak more often. I picked up a storage ring, which contained more than 100,000 kilograms of the juice of the Skyshooting Dapeng eagle. Ugh. Kai Shukuan, you are such a cruel person. On Iran Peak. It's good. Hey, cousin, I can't swallow it anymore. Teacher, I feel so good. The dragon and phoenix egg was as big as two people hugging each other. Even though it was only half of the egg, it was still very heavy. Susu, Chu Fij, and Mo Xiangran were all full in no time. Put it in, stuff it in, and I'll swallow it. Yeah, harder, but what goes into the mouth is all cultivation. If you hold on any longer, you will have to stuff it into your mouth to death. Li Congxin burst into sweat. Girls, what kind of nonsense are these? As for the other three, they all looked surprised when they looked at them. Brothers, did you starve to death in your last life? Half of the egg was quickly divided up by Li Yi, Li Aoran, and Hu Chong. Kacha kacha kacha. Brothers Li Yi and Li Ao didn't even spare the eggshells. They chewed up the hard eggshells that were as thick as their palms. Boom. Martial Emperor Realm. Boom. Martial Saint Realm. Boom. After eating a dragon and phoenix egg, the six people's cultivation levels were just right, just enough to step into the quasi-emperor realm, feeling the powerful aura released by himself, and realizing the terrifying power contained in his body. He rubbed his fingertips and squinted his eyes, all showing the imperial power. Six people, with incredible expressions on their faces. This feeling is like a dream. How could they dare to think that at such a young age, they could reach the quasi-emperor level of cultivation that is higher than that of only one person in this world? Li Congxin expected such a result, because the two ancestors of the falling dragon Holy Land and the falling phoenix Holy Land are both quasi-emperors who have reached the peak of their cultivation and have lived for hundreds of thousands of years. The eggs containing their two cultivation levels were fed directly. 6 new generations who have just entered the quasi-emperor realm, not surprising, and quite reasonable. Young master, am I a quasi-emperor now? Cousin, pinch my face. Chu Fij and Susu still couldn't believe it, as if responding to them. Boom. Boom, 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 high in the sky, 6 huge lightning bolts flashed, and world-destroying thunder penetrated the sky and the earth. Boom. Following these loud thunders, the mighty forces of heaven and earth soon converged towards Iran Peak from all directions, turning into dense thunderclouds and covering the entire peak. Thunderclouds are as thick as 10,000 feet, the power of God is infinite, the murderous intention surged fiercely. The disaster is coming. Chu Fij, who originally couldn't believe that he had entered the quasi-emperor realm, exclaimed, once someone reaches the quasi-emperor realm, he will definitely suffer a natural disaster. Now, she can't believe it, but she has to believe it. Under normal circumstances, after a natural disaster is triggered, there will be a buffer time of a few days for cultivators to prepare. It is extremely rare for such a natural disaster to come directly. It can be seen that they are acting like this. One moment they are at the level of a grandmaster, and the next moment they are a quasi-emperor. It is really against the will of heaven, and even the law of heaven will not allow it. Buzz. Buzz. The power of heavenly punishment turned into 6 rays of bright light, which shone on Chu Fij and others like spotlights of destruction. Heaven's punishment has locked up the 6 people around Li Congxin. Then, the power and destructive power brewing in the sky grew stronger and stronger. 6 quasi-emperors caused a catastrophe at the same time and appeared on a mountain peak at the same time. One can imagine their power and terror. It was 6 lightning bolts just now. Was it the appearance of 6 powerful quasi-emperors? This. I don't dare to think about it. I don't even dare to think about it. In the Holy Land, everyone was horrified when they saw the terrifying vision of heaven and earth. Is young master mass-producing quasi-emperors? Hiss. Mass production of quasi-emperors. These words made everyone tremble in their hearts. Soon, someone started to look worried again. Do you want to activate the big formation to help them carry it? Be prepared quickly. No matter what, first aid measures are always available. Feeling enveloped by the turbulent power of heaven, Chu Fij and others also had serious expressions. They were forced into the quasi-emperor realm by the young master. They did not have solid growth experience. It can be said that their foundation was extremely unstable. Could they withstand that powerful catastrophe? Brother, please hide quickly. Cousin, the catastrophe has nothing to do with you. You should avoid it first. Although they knew that Li Congxin was definitely 1,000 times stronger than the 6 of them combined and was the best help for them to resist the disaster, they were still unwilling to let Li Congxin take risks. At this time, Li Congxin, who was standing leisurely with his hands behind his back, narrowed his eyes slightly. On his body, circles of Tao Yun auras filled with the laws of the Tao were rising from the soles of his feet. As his eyes suddenly opened, boom. Above the body, an unusually bright and dazzling light burst out. It contained the power of the great emperor, and the divine light that soared into the sky instantly penetrated the 10,000-foot thundercloud formed by the power of the 6 quasi-emperors' heavenly tribulations. A big hole was cut through the thick thundercloud. It's like a terrifying cave in the sky. Boom. 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 Outside the house, 6 buzzes were heard, and the heaven and earth fluctuated. At this time, with Li Congxin as the center and surrounding Iran peak, the sky and the earth appeared in the void, and 6 behemoths swallowing up the heaven and earth emerged out of thin air. Those are 6 ancient bronze cauldrons, each one is 100 feet high. On the cauldron, there are spectacular patterns engraved with the sun, moon, stars, all living things, gods and Buddhas. Those 6 bronze cauldrons are like divine objects from ancient times. Their momentum can swallow up the heaven and the earth. Boom. Under the tremendous power released by the 6 tripods, the 6 overlapping powers of quasi-emperor's calamity were shattered by the impact. Thousands of feet thick thunderclouds dissipated without a trace in an instant. The sky returned to blue and cleared away. Chu Fij and others were extremely shocked. Their heavenly catastrophe had just appeared and then disappeared again. It was so shocked that it disappeared. But the vast power between heaven and earth has become 100 times, 1,000 times, 10,000 times more powerful. It's still growing. In the Holy Land, everyone looked up. What is that? Is it the artifact summoned by the young master to fight against the catastrophe? So powerful, that everyone can feel that the divine power contained in the 6 bronze cauldrons is far more vast and powerful than the power of the 6 quasi-emperors. The Avenue Bell. At this time, an elder said in shock, yes, the Holy Lord appeared when he broke through to the great emperor realm, and it was the great Tao Bell. It's not a magic weapon summoned by the young master, it's a divine object that appears from the sky. How can this be? How could a new emperor be born on the Tianqin continent when the Holy Lord was at his peak? Everyone showed a look of shock. There is only one great emperor in 1,000,000 years. Then everyone became excited again. Can the young master break the rules of heaven and earth? That must be it. The Grand Avenue Bell, condensed with the mighty power of the Grand Avenue, is a symbol of supreme status. This thing will only appear when the emperor is born. The birth of the great emperor, the sound of the bells on the avenue, announced to all living beings. Chapter 72. The sound of the avenue bell announces to all living beings. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Congxin smiled slightly. After receiving the 360,000 years of cultivation from the system last time, he was already at the pinnacle of the quasi-emperor realm. As expected, a big egg of cultivation successfully pushed him to the great emperor realm, but the strange thing is that when he stepped into the realm of the great emperor, he did not cause the great emperor's heavenly tribulation. Instead, the great Tao bell that announced his identity to the world appeared directly. In other words, he was recognized by heaven. It can also be said in another way that the law of heaven cannot help him. If he can break the rules of heaven and earth, naturally there will be no such thing as a catastrophe. Buzz. Buzz. Under the waves of powerful power released by the 6 bronze cauldrons, the 6 quasi-emperors no longer felt a trace of murderous power or aura, but the pressure brought by these 6 grand avenue bells is more than 1,000 times greater. Chu Fij, Yi Susu, Mo Xiangran, Li Yi, Li Ao, and Ren Hu Chong, who had just entered the quasi-emperor realm, had no time to celebrate the surprise that the catastrophe had passed, and no time to express gratitude to Li Congxin, and suddenly their expressions were heavy again. Looking uncomfortable. Cousin, those 6 bronze tripods are too powerful. He gritted his teeth and held on, but it felt like he couldn't hold on for even a moment. Young master, please ring the bell. I can't stand it anymore. Hurry up, or we will be crushed into powder. The people in the Holy Land were all suppressed and fell to the ground. My grandson. An ancient cry sounded, and the sound, as if it could break the long river of time, resounded throughout the Taigon Holy Land forbidden area. Imperial Mausoleum. At this time, a voice came and said, except for our 5 ancestors who despise this sacred object that contains the power of the Great Road, no one else in the Holy Land can hold it and will be crushed to pieces. After the avenue bell rings, the bronze cauldron will disappear. Go ring the bell and announce it. The voice is old, but extremely majestic, and it can also be heard to be full of excitement and joy. Ha ha ha. Then, there was loud laughter again. At the age of 17, he has already stepped into the realm of the great emperor without even noticing the heavenly tribulation of the great emperor. This grandson is truly amazingly talented. I have the same style as my ancestor, and my future is limitless. Ha ha ha. Another voice sounded, my descendants have been peerless geniuses for generations. I didn't expect that the most evil one would appear in this generation. The smoke keeps rising from the ancestral graves. That's right, that's right. This grandson has entered the realm of the great emperor. Together with Li Tianba's grandson, my family now has 2 great emperors. This is equivalent to 3 feet of vertical smoke rising from the ancestral grave. Ha ha ha. What the hell, you're cursing your own grave for being lit and the smoke coming from the top of your grave. Are you sick? A coquettish voice sounded, and she said with a coquettish smile, Ku, grandson, do it quickly, or the Holy Land will be shattered. Speed. A 5-million-year-old voice contains an undeniable sense of oppression, my good grandson. Now, that everyone was shocked when they heard the ancient sounds that kept ringing from the imperial mausoleum. Unexpectedly, the young master reached the top in one step, and even the ancestors who had been silent for more than 1,000,000 years were alarmed and even spoke out. Those old guys whose bones had long been turned into ashes actually seemed to be jumping in their graves. Like they all burst into joy. Ding, the system is being upgraded. Update successed. Ding, the system is being upgraded. Update successed. Li Congxin stretched out and said lazily, go and knock it for me. Young master, this. Cousin, we can't do it. Chu Fij, Yi Susu and others showed pain on their faces. It was difficult for them to get close to this big cauldron, which could disperse 6 quasi-emperors' heavenly tribulations, let alone ring it. How could the quasi-emperor ring the great bell announcing the birth of the great emperor? Go. I exercised too much today. I'm going to lie down for a while. Li Congxin walked slowly towards the bedroom, and at the same time, he casually waved his sleeves. The power of the Six Paths Great Emperor has covered their bodies. The six people's expressions brightened. At this moment, the feeling of depression, the heavy feeling that was almost suffocating due to being suppressed by the Grand Avenue Bell, completely disappeared. Looking at Li Congxin's lazy back, Chu Fiji's pretty face showed a hint of speechlessness. The young master is still as lazy as ever. Oh no, he is as calm as ever. He didn't show any joy or excitement at being promoted to the Great Emperor, and he didn't show any emotion at all. He even had to have others ring the bell to announce it to the world. Perhaps, this is the nature of the invincible. Cousin, leave this matter to us. What are you waiting for? Li Yi shouted excitedly, stepping out of the house. He looked around at the 6 bronze cauldrons suspended around Iran Peak, and shouted loudly, "Follow me and ring the bell to inform all living beings." All. Li Ao shouted while spitting. Boom. The 6 people with a hint of the power of the Great Emperor rose into the sky together. Li Yexian's body exploded with powerful imperial power, and he shouted like thunder. He raised a thick arm and punched a bronze cauldron with all his strength. Boom! The 100-foot-long cauldron buzzed continuously, and the sound of the cauldron shook the whole world. Amidst the sound, the bronze cauldron that announced its end to the world slowly disappeared into the sky and earth. Once it rang, it shook the whole world. All. Boom! Li Ao's eyes flashed with strong light, and he punched a bronze tripod. The tripod disappeared directly. Only the sound of the tripod was left, shaking the universe. Second sound, shaking the world. Boom! Chu Fiji stood in the void with her clothes fluttering and her skirt flying. Her pretty face was calm. She faced a huge tripod and chopped it with a sword with a trace of the Emperor's power. Third sound, shaking the sun and the moon. Boom! In the void, Mo Xiangran used her aura to hold up an ancient zither, pulled the strings with both hands, put the trace of the Emperor's power into the strings, and pulled hard. The sea of force surged towards a large tripod like a wave, buzzing. Fourth sound, shaking the stars. Boom! As the aura was released, Yasusu's face was tense, her almond eyes were full of evil, and her 2 ponytails flew up. She took out the emperor-killing spear that Li Congxin had given her, and struck it with all her might. With a ray of the Emperor's might, and with a peerless killing light, she blasted towards a large tripod. Boom! 5 rings, shaking the heaven and earth. Explode! With a loud shout, Ren Hu Chong first threw a kitchen knife, but under the might of the Avenue Bell, the kitchen knife shattered directly in the air. Seeing this, he could only grit his teeth. Everyone rang the bell, and if he couldn't ring it, it would be too embarrassing for the young master. Wrapping himself with that trace of the Emperor's might, he made up his mind, like a desperate lone brave, and bravely hit a large tripod with his body. Under the impact, he was spinning around. Boom! 6 rings, shaking all living beings. Boom! The sound of the 6 tripods was like a declaration of heaven and earth, and the sound coming out was like a rolling torrent, rushing violently from the surroundings of Iran Peak to the 8 directions of heaven and earth. Boom! Under the roar, the 6 people of Yasusu who struck the cauldron lost the power of the Great Emperor and were rushed backwards. Rumble! With Iran Peak as the center, large areas of space were shaken, and the roar rolled violently in the Taiqian Holy Land. Oh my God, it's so shocking. This is the sound of the Avenue Bell that announces the appearance of the Great Emperor. It's like the sky is firing a salute. The people in the Holy Land were shocked. Rumble! Soon, the 6 bell sounds had spread out of the Taiqian Holy Land, spreading in all directions at 10,000 times the speed of sound. Thousands of miles, 10,000 miles, 100,000 miles, 1 million miles, 10 million miles, 1 billion miles. The sound waves surged like a tide, covering the entire Tianqin continent. Wherever the bell sound spread, all living beings trembled and showed awe at the same time. This is a declaration. The declaration of the Avenue. The declaration of the new Great Emperor. In the glorious palace. How could such a thing happen? Queen Li Tianqin stood in front of the golden palace on 1,000 white marble steps, listening to the endless sound of the Avenue bells that surrounded the heaven and earth, and couldn't help but frown. It seems that father will face the greatest test of his life. On the blood-stained battlefield. Not good. Li Qingfeng, the first god of war in Tianqin continent, stood among the corpses with a gun in his hand, and suddenly, his cold eyes flashed with a fierce cold light. Brother's real rival, and the biggest hurdle in his life, has appeared. The Emperor, who is above all living beings, controls everything in a world, gathers faith, condenses luck, and controls life and death. He is the absolute ruler of a big world. How can there be two absolute rulers in a world? So, once this happens, the two will start a battle for the avenue. One must die, only one can survive. Chapter 73, The Great Battle. You are listening at novelfull.audio. How could there be any dispute over the great Tao between a father and son who have such deep feelings? Besides, according to Li Congxin's character of not competing with the world, let alone the great Tao, he would not even bother to fight for a place to pee, unless someone peed on his feet unreasonably. Li Congxin just wanted to enjoy life, just wanted to lie down and let it go, and he wished that all the power would be in his father's hands, so, Li Qianxin and Li Qingfeng were just worrying in vain. But he didn't dare to think that Li Congxin had broken through the great emperor realm, a 17-year-old great emperor. There has never been such a thing in ancient times, and it has never been heard of. Of course, when hearing the sound of the great Tao bell, some people were as happy as seeing the dawn of the world and seeing the end of the world. At this time, in the deep sea, on an isolated island. 9 disheveled mysterious people, I don't know how long they have been sitting on this desolate island. Their clothes have been torn and scattered in the weather, and their hair has been tangled. Silence. Like 9 stone statues, deadly silence. The 9 people did not move at all, as if they had broken their backs and hung their heads weakly, their eyes drooping, like 9 humble old dogs, with no desire to live, and no hope in life. They seemed to be sitting here waiting to die, but because their lifespans were too long, they could not die for a while. Who would have thought that these 9 people, who were as far away from the world as broken-backed old dogs, were once all-powerful figures on the Tianqin continent? They were all-powerful beings with earth-shaking power. Buzz. Buzz. The sound of the avenue bell spread to every corner of the Tianqin continent, including the deep sea isolated from the world. Hearing this sound, the 9 people sitting on the ground with their heads down suddenly opened their eyes, and their hunched bodies straightened up. Then, looking up at the throbbing sky and listening to the mighty sound between heaven and earth, the 9 people were first in disbelief, and then extremely excited. Really? Is this true? Is this the heaven favoring us and giving us another chance? 1 ring shakes the 4 seas, 2 rings shake the 8 wastelands, 3 rings shake the sun and moon, 4 rings shake the stars, 5 rings shake the heaven and earth, and 6 rings shake all living beings. Yes, this is the sound of the avenue bell announcing the appearance of a new emperor. I didn't expect that in this 1 million years, there would be a second emperor coming. Excited, the 9 people looked up at the sky and laughed with tears in their eyes. Ha ha ha, ha ha ha. Boom. Hee hee hee. The laughter shook the sea surface in all directions and thousands of miles and continued to explode. Crying with joy, the 9 people who had been sitting here for many years slowly stood up. For a moment, a powerful imperial power also grew. Under the imperial power, each of them became tall, majestic, and awe-inspiring, no longer old, weak, or hunched. Only after washing away the lead and dust can the truth be seen, and waking up is still as strong as before. How can one mountain accommodate 2 tigers? How can one world accommodate 2 emperors standing side by side and holding the power of heaven and earth together? This newly born new emperor will inevitably have a fierce battle with the Heba emperor for the avenue. Li Tianba is the emperor at the peak of his power, and his family is extremely powerful. The newly promoted emperor is definitely not as good as Li Tianba in terms of qualifications and background. But if we 9 people assist, the situation will be different. Since it is a God-given opportunity, then it's time for me to appear. The 9 people who released the imperial power strode towards the sea together. The air waves pushed the sea thousands of miles. Many years ago, they all lost to Li Tianba in the battle for hegemony. In the struggle for hegemony, the winner is the king and the loser is the bandit. Since Li Tianba is the king, they can only be bandits who are exiled overseas and dare not step into the world. In order to survive, they hid in the deep sea and lived on this unknown island. They thought they would never see the dawn again, but the sound of the avenue bell rang. The sound of the avenue bell was an exciting good news for them. Their chance to see the light of day again has come. They have to assist the new emperor and Li Tianba in the avenue battle, defeat Li Tianba, take revenge, and wash away their hatred. I don't know who the new emperor is, and whether we are old acquaintances. No matter who it is, if he can get help from the 9 of us, he will be overjoyed. Next, the first step after we appear in the world is to go to the Taiqian Holy Land. Absolutely not. Before finding the new emperor, who is also our new boss, going there is a 100% chance of death. The new emperor and Li Tianba are fighting for the avenue, and they are facing his entire family. Why don't we cut off one of Li Tianba's left and right arms first, as a token of our loyalty to the new emperor? That's a good idea. Humph, we should have found out about that girl's bad luck a long time ago. She made a blacklist that left us with nowhere to stay and we had no choice but to hide in the deep sea. As they spoke, the 9 people walked on the sea and headed towards the mainland. Under the rolling imperial power, there was a posture of a warrior who would never return after leaving the cold wind and the cold Shui River. Target, Queen Li Tianxin. These 9 people are 9 of the 10 people on Li Tianxin's blacklist: Soul Ancestor, Blood Ancestor, Sword God, Knife Demon, Gold Emperor, Wood Emperor, Water Emperor, Fire Emperor, Earth Emperor. 9 strongest quasi-emperors. 9 people lived on an isolated island and created a large formation. When they joined forces, they could even fight against the emperor. Boom. The emergence of 2 emperors in a million years is not a good thing for all living things. For a time, the world was in an uproar. Everyone also believed that the new emperor would inevitably fight with the Heba emperor for the avenue. Tianqin continent would soon turn into a huge battlefield. Soon, there would be a scene of heaven and earth being destroyed and all living beings being devastated. Iran peak. Even though the Holy Land was filled with cheers, Li Congxin was no different from before after becoming the emperor. He continued to lie on the bed. At this time, the 6 avenue bells finally gradually disappeared from the world. He had never expected that the bells announcing the arrival of the emperor would blow out all the terrorists on the eldest sister's blacklist. Cousin, you are so amazing. Entering the great emperor realm at the age of 17 is unprecedented in history. And breaking the rules of heaven and earth to become an emperor is even more unprecedented. Young master, I used to admire Shen Biyang, the first genius of our Congxin continent, but now I realize that he is too ordinary compared to you. In front of you, no one in the world is qualified to be called a genius. Awesome, awesome. You are both a super horizontal refining king and a super power king, and now you have entered the great emperor realm. Haha, brother, I don't think your father can beat you. After ringing the bell, the 6 Chu Fijas who were already quasi-emperors but had no quasi-emperor heirs in front of Li Congxin also came to him happily. Now looking at Li Congxin's appearance, they not only admired him very much, but also almost had a face full of infatuation. From this moment on, Li Congxin was their life goal. Of course, I didn't dare to think about catching up. As long as I could see his back from afar, like a beacon guiding me, I would be satisfied. Don't just praise me. Haven't you all entered the quasi-emperor realm? Come on, work hard, and climb up. In the future, you will all be emperors. For Li Congxin, such things as making cakes are easy to do. After all, they are all his substitutes. After he reached the emperor realm, it is not that there is no room for promotion. Chapter 74 3000 Worlds House. You are listening at novelfull.audio. I don't dare think about it, Emperor. Chu Fija's face turned pale with fright, and he said elegantly and modestly, the way of heaven has rules. The great emperor of a million years. The young master's sudden appearance like this has already made the way of heaven very embarrassed. If we all become the great emperor, the way of heaven will be lost. Where to put your face? Don't worry, cousin, Susu will definitely not let you down. Yasusu was confident and proud, and slapped himself hard on the chest. Cousin, let me give you a massage. Seeing Li Congxin lying like this, she jumped onto the bed with ease. Li Congxin was lying face up at this time. Wearing a short skirt, she jumped on the bed and sat on Li Congxin without hesitation. Then she bent down and pressed a pair of small hands on his chest muscles. Soothed, because of the force on his hands, his small waist moved back and forth. Li Congxin quickly suppressed the evil thoughts with his thoughts. It's not that he's afraid of embarrassment, mainly because there are so many people now. This posture made Mo Xiangran's beautiful face turn crimson instantly. Young master, let me pinch your joints. Chu Fij has long been used to it. She was also very sensible. She sat elegantly on the edge of the bed, took one of Li Congxin's hands and put it on her leg. She held it with one hand and followed his knuckles with the other, pulling them one by one with appropriate strength. Li Congxin narrowed his eyes in comfort amid the crackling sound of his joints. Serving Li Congxin is a natural and common thing for Yi Susu and Chu Fij. Mo Xiangran stood aside with a somewhat awkward expression. She is also the person next to Li Congxin now, so what should she do? The teacher had given me such a great blessing, so I had to do something. After taking a look, there was really no place for her to start. Teacher, let me give you a squeeze on Xiangran's feet. But she was very smart, so she walked to the other side of the bed with a slightly blushing face, stretched out a pair of slender white jade hands that only used pen and ink, and pinched Li Congxin's calf. Li Congxin smiled lightly and didn't say much. Make peace with it. Soon, he showed a somewhat confused expression of enjoyment. Goddess, spirit maiden, and talented maiden all serve you together. This kind of beauty is much more practical than being called an emperor. While enjoying it, Li Congxin looked at the others again. I saw Li Ao stabbing men in the spiritual pond outside the house, having a great time. Li Yi, who did not have such a blessing as him, started to serve him by himself out of boredom. He sat carelessly on the threshold, picking his armpits with one hand and his feet with the other. From time to time, he would put his hand under his nose and smell it. Ren Huchong was standing outside the door, waiting with a smile on his face. He wanted to eat or drink, waiting for his orders at any time. Li Congxin suddenly looked thoughtful. Now that there is Mo Xiangran, Li Ao, this idiot cousin, will definitely stay by his side. It seems that Li Yi has no intention of leaving. There are more and more people on his Iran peak. It would be good to have more power levels, but this residence, ding. The system is being upgraded. The upgrade failed. The upgrade failed. The third upgrade is successful. Congratulations, you have obtained a miracle, a house of 3,000 worlds, Guangsha. Whatever Li Congxin was thinking, the system immediately gave him a solution. This sensible and considerate system makes everyone want to replace Chu Fij, Isu Sumo Xiangran, and personally give Li Congxin a full-body massage. 3,000 Worlds House, Guangsha. Miracle. Li Congxin was slightly shocked at first. The treasure the system had just given him was of the same miraculous level as the dragon pond with thousands of dragons. So I found out about it, and then I said, oh, again, that's it. He was not in a hurry, and after enjoying the service of the three women for more than an hour, he lazily said, let's go find an open place, and I will arrange your next accommodation. The women who were waiting on him looked stunned. Isn't there just one house on Iran Peak? Is it necessary to build a building in an open space? Indeed, there are more people now and it is a bit crowded. Okay, cousin. Young master, I will put on your shoes and socks right now. Master, do you want Xiangran to make a structural drawing of a house? What style do you like? Suddenly, everyone looked happy. It would be a very romantic thing to think about building a house with Li Congxin on this beautiful Iran peak. Li Yi, who was sitting on the threshold picking his feet, suddenly stood up, patted his feet and said with a smile, brother, prepare a room for me too. I have decided not to leave, and will stay in Iran from now on. Serving you on the mountain. There's no need to wait. Li Congxin smiled and said, but there is always a cousin's home on Iran Peak. Brother, I love you so much. Li Yi was deeply moved by this sentence. He looked majestic, and 2 lines of crocodile tears flowed from his eyes. You gain cultivation for 3 days. You get a pack of Sophie's fragrance. You gain cultivation for 5 days. You get 1 top quality water spirit stone. Li Congxin took a walk, one step at a time, while looking for a place to stay. At the same time, he looked at his total number of steps, 32123, it's the 7th day since time travel. I promised to lie down, but ended up walking more than 30,000 steps in 7 days, which is really too much. I will have to lay down those who walked too much in the future. When I think about myself, I will become the emperor in 7 days, hee. It's here. Coming to an open space, Li Congxin looked around. The scenery was pleasant and the feng shui was excellent. Cousin, I'll go find some materials. Young master, I'll go dig the foundation first. Master, I'll go plan it. The excited women were very excited. When they were about to take action, Li Congxin waved his sleeves casually, buzz. The space fluctuated, and an ancient attic had fallen from the sky and sat in the empty space. The appearance was simple and elegant. It was a small wooden building with only 2 floors. This is too powerful, seeing several people with surprise. Could it be that after entering the realm of the great emperor, they all have the ability to create everything? In a thought, a house was created. Li Congxin saw a big stone not far from the small wooden building, so he stretched out another hand and drew a finger in the void. 100 meters away, sparks flew on the stone and stone chips flew. Suddenly, a series of magnificent and majestic characters appeared, as stable as a mountain in the face of wind and rain. I wish I had a mansion with thousands of rooms to shelter all the strange people in the world. Guangsha, that's the name of this small building. Then he smiled at the people around him, and changed the word poor scholar to strange scholar, because he would never sell misery in his life. All the people living on his Iran peak are the chosen ones of heaven, so how could there be any miserable and lonely poor scholars? Looking at the characters, Mo Xiangran was shocked and admired. The master's talent is really, as if it came from heaven. With a casual wave of his hand, he could write such a good article. However, a small wooden building dared to claim to be a mansion with thousands of rooms that can shelter all the strange people in the world. This is too much boasting. Li Congxin stretched out a hand, and 6 bronze keys appeared in his palm. He said, each of you will have one. From now on, this is your residence. Of course, there is also a room for me. No way. Li Yi was surprised and said, brother, how can 3 girls and 4 men live in this 2-story wooden building? They can only stack them up. You will know if you go in and take a look. Li Congxin smiled slightly. Several people took a key each and walked into the mansion one after another. Chapter 75. Everyone has a different world. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Click. Chu Fij opened the door of the small wooden building. As the door crack slowly opened, a ray of light shot out from the house, bathing her whole body in it. Under the light, Chu Fij's beautiful figure blended into it and began to gradually disappear. Immediately, the wooden door closed automatically. 1 key can only enter 1 person. Next moment. This is where, that when Chu Fij entered the house, she was in a misty world. She stood gracefully on the vast earth, like a speck of dust in the sky and earth, looking extremely small. In front of her, there stood 2 majestic towers, like a pair of twin towers. Each tower soared straight into the sky and into the clouds. On the tower, there are 3 vast characters floating in the form of clouds. Tower of Destiny. Luck Tower. Standing in front of the 2 towers, Chu Fij was stunned and shocked. As soon as she felt the aura of the 2 towers, she was pleasantly surprised again. Meeting the young master is truly the greatest blessing of my life. With a face full of gratitude, he quickly flew towards the Destiny Tower. Boom. As she entered, the Tower of Destiny seemed to be in motion, releasing a dazzling brilliance. Chu Fij is the daughter of Destiny and the daughter of Destiny in this world, and these 2 towers are tailor-made for her. In the Tower of Destiny, you can improve your cultivation 10,000 times faster, and in the Tower of Destiny, you can continue to practice actual combat. Ability, improve yourself. 3000 Worlds House in Guangsha. This seemingly small wooden house with only 2 floors, contains everything in the 3000 worlds, including everything in the world. As long as a person has the key given by the owner of Guangsha, after entering, Guangsha will automatically generate a scene space according to her own situation. This small wooden building can definitely meet Li Congxin's requirements, a great shelter for all strangers in the world. If they knew the power of this small wooden building, all the cultivators in the world would definitely kneel down and cry, just hoping to get one of Li Congxin's keys. Click. At this time, Yesusu also opened the wooden door with the key. Like Chu Fij, under the light emitted from the door, her delicate figure blended into it and gradually disappeared. The guangsha she entered was a valley with beautiful scenery and the fragrance of birds and flowers. In the valley, among the sea of flowers, there was a strange large bright orange jade stone that she could see at a glance. Feeling the mysterious power of that piece of jade, Yesusu jumped for joy. "Cousin, did you prepare this specially for me?" That the coquettish voice can kill people. "I love you, cousin. You are so good to Su. He happily flew towards the big jade stone. This is a cultivation stone specially developed for her natural spiritual spring body. Yesusu sat down on the jade stone, and wow, the spiritual power in his body suddenly surged out crazily, and was continuously sucked away by the cultivation stone. Then, it turned into a huge cultivation level, and was continuously transmitted from the cultivation stone to himself. The speed of cultivation here is 10,000 times that of the outside world. Click. Opening the door of Guangsha, Mo Xiangran entered a bookstore full of ancient style and charm. Standing in the middle of the huge circular bookstore, Mo Xiangran looked surprised. When he came closer, he stood under the bookshelf that was more than 10 meters high, and his beautiful eyes were even more astonished. She was thinking about some book, so she picked one randomly from the bookshelf, and that was the book. For a moment, she was even more shocked. "This is so amazing," that he murmured in a low voice. "What kind of magical power does the teacher have? He actually prepared a library of all things for me. The Wanxiang bookstore means whatever book you want, it will be what you take off the bookshelf. Whatever you think in your heart, all things will be created by themselves." In the bookstore, Ying bowed. "Thank you, teacher, for giving me great blessings." Then, smelling the faint fragrance of books wafting from all directions, walking in the bookstore with a happy face, my fingertips slowly passed over the bookshelves, and the power of Confucianism and Taoism flew out from those books like traces of ink. Click. The style of Guangsha that Li Yi entered changed drastically, and it turned out to be a place as terrifying as the 18th level of hell. In a gloomy prison with various torture instruments on the walls and on the floor, there was a torture bed stained with blood. This is good." Seeing this, Li Yi was overjoyed. Because the 3000 Worlds room was specially transformed for him, he could immediately feel the purpose of this space as soon as he entered it. "Bring it on." Immediately, without saying a word, he lay down on the execution bed and closed his eyes comfortably. Buzz. In the space, during a wave of fluctuations, several punishers were automatically generated. All of them were burly men with expressionless faces. Torture slave. 2 torture slaves, with their burly upper bodies naked and beads of sweat flowing along their muscle lines, held tempering whips in their hands and started whipping Li Yi. This whip can whip the quasi-emperor to death with just one whip. There was also a torture slave holding a lit cartilage wax in his hand, with no expression on his face, and dripped it drop by drop onto the red mark where he had been whipped out by the tempering whip. 1 drop of this wax can melt all the bones in the quasi-emperor's body. It's so happy, so happy. Ouch! Li Yi twisted his body excitedly on the execution bed and let out extremely exciting and happy screams. The Henglian assistant in Guangsha is definitely 10,000 times faster than he used to be. Now, he dares to believe that he will definitely become the first Henglian emperor in the near future. Brother, you are so good to me. Brother, try harder. Click. The Guangsha that Li Ao entered was a prehistoric track filled with lus. In the track, there is a thick wild rope that can be used to pull the world. Roar. Roar. At the other end of the track, stood a burly demon with 8 arms and fangs coming out of his mouth, thick black gas rising from his body. His 8 arms held one end of the wild rope tightly, and he kept roaring provocatively at Li Ao. Come on, come on, come on, that this is a Li slave. When faced with provocation, Li Ao, a fool, naturally became furious and immediately became violent. Standing at the other end of the prehistoric track, he grabbed the thick rope on the ground and began to pull with Linu on the opposite side. Li Ao's Guangsha house is a tug-of-war track. after defeating the Li Nu on the opposite side, a stronger Li Nu will appear in this space and continue to pull with him, infinitely, in the tug of war. Let his power continue to grow and become stronger. This is also the simplest way for King Li to grow. Click. The guangsha that Ren Hu Chong entered was like a farmer's supermarket, with rows of counters filled with all kinds of food and fruits, which made him dazzled. Awesome! Young master is so awesome, that he danced with joy. From now on, when I make delicious food for you, master, you will never have to worry about not having abundant ingredients. This is also his way of cultivation. He has the status of a cooking god, and making delicious food is his way of cultivation. Just like Confucianism and Taoism gain knowledge, his cultivation will grow every time he makes a delicious dish. After all 6 people entered Guangsha, Li Congxin also reached out to push open the wooden door and walked in slowly. He is the owner of Guangsha and he does not need a key. He can enter any room in Guangsha at will, but what he entered at this moment was the room that the 3000 Worlds house had transformed for him. It's a small wooden house located under a big tree next to a waterfall. Looking out the window, the scenery is pleasant. There is not much in the house, just a curved recliner made of green bamboo and a rather freehand calligraphy. What is written on the words, indifferent and clear aspirations, tranquility and far-reaching. Only by looking down on worldly fame and wealth can one's ambitions be clear. Only by being peaceful in body and mind can one realize lofty ideals. It's like a reminder, and it's like expressing Li Congxin's mentality and state of mind at this moment. Li Congxin lay down on the recliner. Ding, reminder, the upgrade speed increases to 10,000 times while lying flat. Cultivation comes like a torrent. He squinted his eyes with a contented look on his face. The lying flat upgrade mode means that the flatter he lies, the faster he upgrades. It was disgusting enough, but this time, it became even more perverted than a pervert. Now, living in Guangsha, his power-leveling players have become even more involved, plus the occasional walk or something, the 7-day Great Emperor realm. If this continues, and if some relatives and friends come to try to disobey the system, it will take a few months at most, and I will surely reach the peak of the Great Emperor realm. At that time, we can take the entire family and the entire Holy Land to grow together. Li Congxin lay leisurely and gradually fell into a dream. At this time, outside world, in the swirling dust, 9 ragged men from overseas finally dared to show up openly after many years, appearing outside the gate of the imperial city of the Shifang dynasty. Who is coming? Seeing the murderous arrival, the guard shouted. A mere ant is worthy enough to ask us our names. Get away. Boom. The 9 people kept walking, and the powerful imperial power they released directly sent the guards at the city gate flying into the sky. We are the surviving Avengers who came after the birth of the new emperor. Today, we are here, and we only want to fight with all our courage and open up a new era for the new emperor. The era of the Li family has come to an end. It's time to end. The 9 people announced as they walked, their voices like mountain torrents resounding throughout the vast imperial city. Soul Ancestor congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The Blood Ancestor congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The Sword God congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The Sword Demon congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. Emperor Jin congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. Wood Emperor congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The Water Emperor congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The Fire Emperor congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The Earth Emperor congratulates on the birth of the new emperor. The 9 most powerful quasi-emperors released their powerful auras and strode toward the imperial city with boundless confidence, high-spirited and domineering, but no matter how you look at it, he has a bit of a charade. Boom. Boom. On the official road, as the 9 people came, the dense crowd of guards were all blown into the air by their aura. Chapter 76, Every member of the Li family is extremely beautiful. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Congxin, who was indifferent to fame and wealth, and was calm and far-sighted, was lying in a mansion on Iran Peak, taking a nap. However, the newly born emperor had caused a sensation in the world. The majestic main gate of the palace, a general at the level of a great master led 100,000 soldiers to wait in battle array. Boom. Under the powerful imperial power, the army that was blocking the palace gate flew into the sky like pieces of paper in the wind. The sky was full of shields and people flying, except for those holy places that had the power to fight against the quasi-emperor. In the big world, the quasi-emperor was like a god. In their eyes, the army was just a group of ants. The new emperor was born, and the world should be reshuffled. We are willing to be the shufflers of the new emperor. The 9 people walked into the palace with big strides while declaring their loyalty. Although they didn't know who the new emperor was, no matter who it was, this was their only chance to see the light of day again, follow the new emperor and overthrow the Heba emperor in the struggle for the Great Way. Otherwise, they can only live in secret on an isolated island overseas forever, and live in fear, listening to the sound like the sound of heaven. There was chaos in the imperial city. It's over, 2 emperors in one era. This is a sign of doomsday for the people. Yes, the struggle for the Great Way is a war of annihilation for ordinary people. Soon the mountains and rivers will collapse, and all living things will be destroyed. Hundreds of millions of people in the city fell into panic. Soon, 9 Avengers who had lost to Li Tianba in the struggle for hegemony came to the palace square. The footsteps stopped suddenly. Looking forward, on the 1,000 steps of white marble stairs, in front of a magnificent golden palace, a queen in gorgeous clothes stood alone against the world. The 9 people all looked stern. The target of their trip appeared. That woman was the right-hand man of the Heba emperor, Li Tianba's eldest daughter, Li Tianxin. You, a quasi-emperor, dare to face 9 of us alone and remain calm. You are worthy of being a member of the Li family. Even if they were facing an enemy, they couldn't help but praise. What is there to be afraid of? Why should we be in chaos? Li Tianxin's voice was as cold as ice. Just because you 9 snakes and rats who have been hiding for many years and dare not show up, you are qualified to be pioneers and want to open up a new era. Instead, he took a step forward. Boom. Under the release of the imperial power, the gorgeous robe fluttered, and the 10-foot-long smoke gauze on her white wrists fluttered like flying catkins in the wind. The person looked like he was carved out of an ancient Dunhuang painting. Stunning. The faces of the 9 people all sank. The original strong aura of pretense was suppressed a little bit. She is worthy of being a female emperor, that the sole ancestor couldn't help but praise. Faced with the pressure of our 9 strongest quasi-emperors, she didn't retreat or show any weakness. But even the most blazing sun will eventually fall. The blood ancestor said loudly, Li Tianxin, a new emperor is born, and the era of your Li family's dominance is over. The world cannot tolerate 2 rulers. The new emperor will fight for the Great Way with the extreme tyrant emperor, and we are willing to be the founding heroes of the new emperor. I want to kill you, the right-hand man of the emperor Heba, as a token of my surrender to the new emperor. Humph, Li Tianxin, all the people on your blacklist are here. Today, let's see whether you can get rid of us or we can kill you. Ha ha ha. The sword demon laughed loudly. Not to be outdone, I heard that you are protecting the family business for your brother, but I'm afraid that your Li family's foundation will not be passed on to your brother's generation. The 9 strongest quasi-emperors also stepped forward, and at the same time, they burst out with a strong aura. Boom. The momentum rolled forward like a vast ocean and pushed forward. Under their momentum, the Qinggang rock brick floor was constantly rolled up and spread rapidly forward. My father's kingdom and my brother's family business, you can't touch them. Don't even think about it. A delicate shout pierced the eardrum. Li Tianxin waved his sleeves domineeringly. In front of them, a mighty and domineering killing weapon appeared. The golden barrel of more than 10 meters was facing the 9 people in the square. She stood on the golden cannon with a crown on her body, holding the gun mount with both hands. Her jade face was cold and her eyebrows were frosty. She was majestic and domineering. Semi-god level killing weapon, Royal Imperial Cannon. The 9 quasi-emperors screamed at the same time. They took a breath of cold air, and they were releasing the imperial power to crush them forward, but they all put away their momentum and took a step back. You actually have such a killing weapon. No wonder you are so calm. All of them were shocked. Don't you know that everyone in my Li family is so beautiful? Li Tianxin stood on the Royal Imperial Cannon, with the attitude of a female emperor dominating the world, and she was aggressive. The Royal Imperial Cannon has the power to burn the sky. One shot can burn and kill hundreds of millions of troops. It is said that one shot can even hurt the emperor. The 9 people were afraid. Unexpectedly, this woman actually had this weapon in her hand. The Li family's background was so deep that it exceeded their expectations. Do you dare? The Thunder Emperor's voice sank. Once this cannon is fired, even if it can bury us, this imperial city with hundreds of millions of people will also be reduced to ashes, even including you. The Fire Emperor said firmly, all the people in this city are your people. I don't believe you dare to fire the cannon. I am the Emperor, and all living beings are willing to be buried with me. Li Tianxin directly pulled the trigger of the cannon. Don't be impulsive. 9 people shouted in unison. Li Tianxin's voice was as cold as ice. If you don't believe it, you can take a step forward and try it. The 9 people's faces were horrified, and they took a step back together again. They were even more frightened in their hearts. If her Li family doesn't dominate the world, even dogs won't accept it. A woman in the Li family is so courageous, and has the same style as the great Emperor Heba, strong, domineering, and decisive in killing. Haha, my niece is so awesome. A long laugh sounded. Boom. A long spear with a killing power fell from the sky and inserted into the ground, suppressing the hard bluestone ground like a spider web. Boom boom. The huge killing power released from the heaven-shaking spear caused the 9 strong men to take up defense and took a step back again. If you want to touch my nephew's family business, you have to ask the gun in my hand. A tall figure in battle armor descended from the sky and stood in front of Li Tianxin, full of heroic spirit and fierce killing in his eyes. War god Li Qingfeng. Looking at the tall man, the 9 quasi-emperors were shocked again. Unexpectedly, Li Qingfeng was there too. This man, whose combat power was second only to Li Tianba, was the second strongest person in Tianqin continent, but when he thought that he was one of the 9 strongest quasi-emperors. What a big tone. Soul Ancestor said, Li Qingfeng, although you are a generation of war god, you are still only at the peak of quasi-emperor, and we are all at the peak of quasi-emperor. You may not be able to kill 9 of us alone. I specialize in peak battles. 1-on-1, yes. 1-on-2, yes. 1-on-3, no problem. 1-on-5, no problem. All of you come together. I'm not afraid. Li Qingfeng pulled up the heaven-shaking spear stuck in the ground beside him, full of confidence. Even if I can't kill 9, it's enough to kill 7 or 8 before I die in battle. He raised the gun, pointed the gun at the 9 people, and said heroically, come on. Win or lose, 1 horizontal and 1 vertical. The winner stands, the loser falls. Today, either I fall, or you die. Boom. In the gun, the killing light flashed like a bright star. Under that incomparable might, the 9 strongest quasi-emperors were repelled again. They were horrified. Damn it, the people of the Li family are really gorgeous. They can't pretend. In front of the Li family, they can't pretend to be high-profile, proud, and arrogant. It seems that the emperor must be asked to show up first. Chapter 77, Soul-Binding Contract. Invite the emperor to show up. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Tianxin is decisive in killing and not easy to mess with. Li Qingfeng's combat power is even more unfathomable. If the 9 of us want to fight him, we may not be able to take advantage in the end. Thinking of this, the 9 quasi-emperors who came only for revenge looked at each other and nodded together with more determination. What are you waiting for? The moment they walked out of the sea, they had already made their decision. Boom. Bang bang bang. Suddenly, the 9 people stretched out their hands together and slapped themselves hard on the chest. Puff. He bowed his head and spat out a mouthful of blood on his palm. Then without hesitation, they raised their bloody palms, and the 9 quasi-emperors swore in unison, the soul is the matchmaker, and the blood is the medium. From now on, I will serve the Lord. Your life and death destiny will be controlled by the Lord. The soul is the matchmaker, the blood is the medium. Following the sound of the oath, souls floated out from the heart and flew into the blood in the palm, and the blood in the palm flourished. The blood light turned into countless runes and rose into the sky, disappear into the sky. Are you crazy? This method of unilaterally selling himself made Li Qingfeng look shocked. Li Tianxin also said in disbelief, you don't even know who the new emperor is, how dare you bind a soul contract? Ha ha ha. Play, just play big. Ha ha ha, who is not a cruel person, that at this point, the 9 people who had made a big gamble started laughing wildly. This will prove our determination. Because we want to compete with your family and get rid of your family's suppression, this is our only choice. Besides, to be able to become the great emperor, he must be an unparalleled person, and a person of great magnanimity and courage, so no matter who he is worthy of being our master. The 9 quasi-emperors had firm expressions, their move is not actually rash. Under normal circumstances, it only takes 1,000,000 years for the unparalleled Supreme One to appear in the world. The supreme title of Great Emperor alone is enough to make all living beings worship and rush to surrender, regardless of anything. To follow, even if you don't know who he is, condensing luck, seizing fortune, controlling life and death, the Great Emperor is a kind of belief. The Great Emperor is an existence that can stand side by side with the way of heaven in this world, and is equivalent to the master of all living beings. Therefore, as long as he takes the initiative to offer a soul contract to him, he can hear his call no matter how far away he is. Of course, not everyone has the ability to offer themselves voluntarily. At least they must be quasi-emperors to be qualified to bind and channel the emperor. Please my lord, the emperor appears. That the 9 people began to shout in unison, please my lord, the emperor appears, that the call of summons resounded in all directions. At this moment, they are also excited in their hearts. When the new emperor comes, let's see how arrogant and unparalleled your family will be. Ding! Soul ancestor binds a soul contract to you. Do you allow it? Ding! The blood ancestor binds a soul contract to you. Do you allow it? Ding! The sword god has bound a soul contract to you. Do you allow it? Ding! Although some people take the initiative to sell themselves, as for whether to accept it or not, they must obtain the consent of the emperor. If I refuse, then everything they do will be in vain and just wishful thinking. However, according to normal circumstances, the emperor would definitely have no reason to disagree with this kind of thing that would benefit him without any harm. Congxin, who was taking a nap on the recliner, was woken up by the system prompt and couldn't help but be a little surprised. Are there so many fools in this world? You don't even know me, so you're willing to be a slut for others? That he had just been promoted to great emperor, but he didn't expect that 9 quasi-emperors would take the initiative to become his slaves. After thinking about it, it seems that there is no reason to refuse. A thought flashed through his mind, I agree. Please my lord, the emperor appears. Please my lord, the emperor appears. That the call from the imperial city hundreds of thousands of miles away immediately appeared overlapping in Congxin's mind. Congxin frowned. Careless. That it turned out that someone was begging him like a god and needed his help, so he was bound to him. I was really too lazy to go down the mountain, so he slowly stood up from the bamboo chair, walked out of the small house in Guangsha, opened the door and entered another door. Following his thoughts, the person appeared in another room in Guangsha. Unjust is doomed to destruction. Do it all at once, second time tired, third time exhausted. Haste makes waste, small gains make great things impossible. Amidst the sweet sound of Ying reading, Mo Xiangran was sitting in the bookstore, holding Spring and Autumn and reading it carefully. Influenced by the fragrance of books and ink. Studying in Guangsha Middle School, she gained more than the outside world. Congxin lightly moved her sleeves, and the Confucian and Taoist aura surrounding her disappeared. Mo Xiangran woke up from the artistic conception of the book and looked up in surprise. When he saw it was Congxin, he quickly closed the book, hugged it to his chest, bowed, and said, "Hello, teacher." Okay. Congxin clasped his hands behind his back, acting like a teacher. He ordered, "You are familiar with the imperial city. Someone is calling me. Go and take a look for me. Also, you'd better tell my eldest sister in person that you want me to be your teacher." Without further ado, he took out another puppet doll of his own clone. "Take this." Then he put it in her hand. After yawning, he slowly left with his hands behind his back, returned to his Guangsha hut and lay down, looking at the beautiful doll that looked exactly like Congxin in her hand. Mo Xiangran was surprised. Why did the teacher give me his own doll? Qingli's face turned red, not daring to think any more. He quickly put the doll in his purse and quickly left the bookstore. When he came to the outside world, he took out a guqin and was about to fly down the mountain to control the weapon. At this time, Li Congxin's lazy voice came from Guangsha. You are already quasi-emperor, why do you control the weapon? Yes. Mo Xiangran patted his forehead lightly before remembering that he was a powerful quasi-emperor. I couldn't help but show excitement. Thank you teacher for reminding me. After understanding the laws of heaven and earth, he gathered his strength and tried to break through it. He let out a ha sound and shot a palm towards the void in front of him. In the void ahead, it bloomed like an ink flower. Wow! The spatial barriers are opened layer by layer. I'm so awesome. Mo Xiangran felt excited in her heart and stepped in. Her beautiful back disappeared among the rippling ink flowers. Please my lord, the emperor appears. Please my lord, the emperor appears. On the palace side, the sincere calls of the 9 quasi-emperors echoed throughout the world. 9 faces looked into the void expectantly. At this moment, Li Tianxin and Li Qinfeng were also a little nervous. If they really invited the great emperor and Li Tianba was not around, they might not be able to compete. At the same time, the two of them were also very curious and stared into the void with concern. What kind of extraordinary figure is this newly born new emperor? He was actually able to forcefully step into the realm of the great emperor during the heyday of the great emperor. Buzz. Above the palace, the void and space fluctuated. An ink flower like ink dripping into the water gradually blooms. Chapter 78 How come you are so strong, little brother? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Is the new emperor coming? That the emperor is the master of a world. In the vast imperial city, hundreds of millions of people looked up at the sky in awe. Let me ask, who among the common people doesn't want to admire the emperor's peerless style? Here he comes. The new emperor has arrived. Looking at the black flowers blooming in the sky, the 9 quasi-emperors who came for revenge were all excited. Great, the new emperor has accepted their soul contract and appeared in the world under their call. Welcome the new emperor. For a moment, without any hesitation, they knocked their fists and bowed their heads, and first made a welcoming gesture towards the sky. He is really here. Li Tianxin's eyebrows were stiff. Buzz. With a pair of white wrists, she stood coldly on the Royal Imperial Cannon, and without hesitation, the long barrel of the Royal Imperial Cannon was directly facing the sky. Li Qingfeng's eyes turned cold, and he held the heaven-shaking spear tightly in his hand, ready for a desperate battle. In the void, a beautiful figure walked out of ink. The scene of being watched by millions of people as soon as she appeared scared her heart. But when he saw that it was Mo Xiangran who walked out of the time and space barrier, Li Tianxin, who was holding the gun mount with both hands, was surprised. This is... The 9 quasi-emperors were also stunned and looked at a loss. No, judging from the girl's breath, she was definitely not a great emperor, but just a cultivator who had just entered the realm of quasi-emperor. They called for a quasi-emperor for a long time. How could they summon a quasi-emperor? My God! Mo Xiangran stood in the void, looking at the situation in the imperial city, and was also shocked. She didn't expect to face such a scene. All the terrifying characters on the Queen's blacklist came to kill, and the 9 famous quasi-emperors on the Tianqin continent were confronting Li Tianxin and Li Qinfeng. Although she is now a quasi-emperor, even if she joins the battlefield, I am afraid she will not be able to turn the tide, right? Is that girl the new emperor? That the people in the imperial city were also surprised. She doesn't look like it. No, I know her. She is Miss Xiangran, a female official beside Her Majesty the Queen, and one of the most talented among the 3 wonders in the world. Just when all parties were stunned, boom boom. A huge momentum that was 10,000 times stronger surged out of Mo Xiangran's body. Under that momentum, the entire imperial city was instantly shrouded and covered, as if it was suppressed by the infinite power of heaven and earth. A young man in white clothes like snow slowly walked out of Mo Xiangran's body. With the appearance of that handsome face, the vast and surging imperial power was even more overwhelming. If he flipped his hand and slapped it, this huge imperial city would definitely collapse and sink immediately. This is the real new emperor. So young, the new emperor is actually a young emperor. The people in the imperial city knelt on the ground in respect and fear. Ah! No way! Li Tianxin and Li Qingfeng were even more surprised than when they saw Mo Xiangran appear. Then, one of them had a beautiful look, the other looked proud and relieved. The new emperor really appeared. That the 9 quasi-emperors of revenge were also completely excited. It can be felt that the power of this new emperor is not inferior to that of the extremely domineering emperor Li Tianba. The girl just now was just the guide of the new emperor, or a slave, or a chariot. In short, it doesn't matter. Ha ha ha. Now, it's time for them to be rampant. Li family, aren't you all gorgeous? Get ready to be suppressed. Meet the great emperor. Excited, one of the water emperors clasped his fists and said, "We are the ones who are calling the great emperor." Showing a loyal look, he said loudly, "We have taken the initiative to sign a soul contract. From now on, we are willing to follow the great emperor and help him fight for the great Tao. We will first kill Li Tianxin and Li Qingfeng, and then destroy Li Tianba, so that the great emperor can be the only one in this world." Hearing this, the young man in the air narrowed his eyes. "Then I'd better kill you first." Without any hesitation, he waved his sleeve towards the water emperor. This young man was naturally a clone of Li Congxin who came out of the puppet doll. At this time, his real body was lying comfortably in a bamboo chair on Iran Peak, holding a cup of tea and sipping it gently, while controlling the clone with his mind. "Why are you attacking me?" That the water emperor was shocked. At the same time, they screamed, "The tides gather." Bang, 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 the power continued to tear apart the huge waves. Li Congxin casually used his sleeves. Although the water emperor had already used his strongest defense, he still had no power to resist. The body of a quasi-emperor exploded on the spot and turned into a tragic blood mist. "We wish." The other 8 people who were about to imitate the water emperor's words were shocked on the spot. This sleeve was enough to show the difference between the emperor and the quasi-emperor, rustling. As the blood mist transformed by the water emperor dissipated, a drizzle fell between heaven and earth. This rain was transformed from the breath of the water emperor. After this rain, he was completely dead and disappeared from this world. A rain soaked several people. It also chilled the hearts of the 8 quasi-emperors who wanted revenge. A quasi-emperor who once dominated the world was killed in an instant. The other 8 people stood in the rain, silent as cicadas. "What's going on? What is going on? Did you just come and didn't understand the situation? We are your followers, why are you killing us?" They were very confused at the moment. Li Congxin was calm as if nothing had happened. "He wanted to kill my sister, my second uncle, and my father as soon as he met me. What's the difference between you and a hungry dog going to the toilet? You are looking for shit, death. Who else should I beat?" Immediately, he stepped down from the air and walked towards Li Tianxin. Seeing this, the 8 quasi-emperors were excited again. Could it be that this new emperor is so arrogant that he disdains our help and wants to fight against the Li family himself? Suppress the geniuses of the Li family by himself? Thinking of this, they became a little excited again. Li Congxin floated to the ground and looked at Li Tianxin on the mighty and domineering royal imperial cannon, and smiled. "Sister, isn't your position high enough? Why are you standing so high?" Li Tianxin glared with her beautiful eyes and flew down the royal imperial cannon. She walked towards Li Congxin angrily. "You little brat, you made me panic." She clenched her fist, she raised a jade hand and pretended to hit him. When she walked in front of Li Congxin, she suddenly became charming, hugged Li Congxin, and pressed his face against her chest. Then, she inserted her hand into Li Congxin's hair and started to mess it up. "Little brother, why are you so strong? Little brother, you have been pretending. Little brother, I let you lie to me for so long, and I worry about you every day. Little brother." The tone was full of intimacy and joy, hugging Li Congxin's head, like kneading a dumpling. Chapter 79, Immortal Soul Puppet. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Be reserved. You are the queen. Pay attention to your image of a gorgeous queen, that although it is only a clone, the main body can also feel the same. Even if Li Congxin is on Iran Peak hundreds of thousands of miles away, at this moment, he also feels like he is about to suffocate. Then, Li Tianxin held Li Congxin's cheeks with both hands again, took a step back, and began to look carefully, and then. How could she not be happy when her brother, who had been useless for more than 10 years, shook his head and became an emperor? She couldn't help but be happy in her heart, and with a red lip, she kept kissing Li Congxin's forehead. Dozens of overlapping lip prints soon appeared on Li Congxin's forehead. He was also helpless. In front of outsiders, his sister was an iceberg queen who was decisive and murderous, but in front of him, she became a kind of nymphomaniac. It has always been like this. She doted on him in every way and doted on him endlessly. Mo Xiangran. She has followed Li Tianxin for many years and has never seen Li Tianxin behave in such an inappropriate manner. Soul ancestor. Blood ancestor. Sword god. Knife demon. Gold emperor. Wood emperor. Fire emperor. Earth emperor. Bang! The weapon in the hands of one of the quasi-emperors fell to the ground. It was cold. Not only the heart, but the whole body was cold. They had been building momentum for so long and created such a great atmosphere, but in the end, the one who was happily welcomed was still a member of the Li family. The new emperor turned out to be the son of the extremely domineering Emperor Li Tianba. This was really unexpected. For a while, the 8 people had extremely strange expressions, not knowing whether they were suffering, sour, or self-deprecating. In short, they felt like fools, like sand sculptures. There was a wave of melancholy in my heart. Let's not call them avengers, but those who seek abuse. The most devastating thing is that they took the initiative to bind soul contracts to each other, which directly ended their lives. Oh my God, that it was difficult for him to accept this fact for a while. Jean D knelt on the ground with a bang, raised his hands to the sky and cried out in grief. Puff. He was so angry and upset that he spit out a mouthful of old blood. Puff. Puff. He shook his head and spit out blood. What's the point of just spraying blood? Everyone in my Li family is so gorgeous, do you believe it now? Just relying on you, do you want to change the world? Do you want to stir up trouble and start a great road dispute? But I have to say that the soul contract you tied is so righteous, and it's really a selfless act. I'm almost moved. Once the soul contract is bound, you have to be a cow and a horse, and you will never turn over as a slave. Ha ha ha. The 8 quasi-emperors collapsed, but Li Qingfeng was still laughing without sympathy. It was the first time in his life that he encountered such a funny thing. Puff. The loud laughter stimulated the blood ancestor to spit out a mouthful of old blood. I really want to cry but I have no tears. Isn't it good to live freely on an isolated island overseas? You have to run out and be a slave to others stupidly. Seeing that Li Congxin was tortured by Li Tianxin, Li Qingfeng laughed again and saved him. Nephew, a few days ago, you were on par with me in fighting power. It's only been a few days since we last met. How come you have been promoted to the emperor? Li Congxin then escaped from Li Tianxin's arms. He adjusted his makeup. He was still calm and composed, with a calm look. Since he couldn't hide it, he could only laugh and say, last time, I fought against my second uncle with my weight. Li Qingfeng's mouth twitched. It's true. Ha ha ha. Immediately, he laughed happily again. The stronger Li Congxin was, the happier he was. There was already a super tyrant emperor, and then a little super tyrant emperor came. Now my family has 2 emperors. Who dares to compete with them? In my opinion, my family can take off again. The heaven-shaking spear in the middle was raised, and the heroic spirit was overwhelming. Next, we can fight the expansion forces of the 10 worlds more unscrupulously. What about the invincible emperor, the eternal emperor, the 10,000 beasts emperor, and the star-shining emperor? All of them are ready to fight. Li Congxin didn't think so broadly. He just wanted to lie on Iran Peak with beautiful women, delicious food, beautiful scenery, and a beautiful mood. However, he still smiled faintly. There are always better things. If you want to blow up the 10 worlds, I think it's safer for all the emperors in the family. Li Qingfeng's mouth twitched again. What are you thinking? Screaming with eyes wide open, thinking that Li Congxin was joking. Let's solve the present first. Li Congxin didn't explain. but looked at the other 8 quasi-emperors who came to trouble his sister. At this moment, the 8 revenge quasi-emperors were ferocious in their collapse, and they couldn't do anything to Li Congxin, and were about to give Li Tianxin a fatal blow. "Get out!" Li Congxin's eyes, which were composed of 10 double pupils, suddenly shone. In his eyes, an invincible light burst out, boom. He opened his eyes with a 10,000 times critical strike, and shocked the 8 quasi-emperors to fly out. The 8 quasi-emperors, like a few old rags in the wind, flew hundreds of meters away before falling to the ground with a crackling sound. Even the god of war Li Qingfeng took a deep breath. The 8 quasi-emperors were horrified and in agony. Li Congxin's glance just now released a terrifying power that almost burned their souls. In the distance, Li Congxin slowly raised one hand again, the palm of his hand pressed down slightly. Puff! As if under pressure from the sky, the imperial power of the 8 quasi-emperors collapsed. The 8 quasi-emperors spit out a mouthful of blood at the same time, their whole bodies softened, and they lay on the ground with their hands folded. They kept wailing, "Spare my life, great emperor, spare my life." Li Tianxin was shocked. Is this the power of the great emperor? But even their father Li Tianba didn't seem to be so terrifying. It's impossible to glare at 8 peak quasi-emperors with just one look, right? Mo Xiangran, who was standing aside, was already stunned on the spot. She had only seen Li Congxin's gentle and elegant side before, but she didn't expect that his fighting power was so amazing. "Wait!" Li Tianxin shouted. "Oh!" Li Congxin withdrew the power in his palm. Could it be that her fairy-like elder sister has shown mercy? Li Tianxin said, "These 8 quasi-emperors have signed a soul contract with you, and can only be at your mercy, so killing or not is actually not important. Father has been fighting for many years, and now he needs people. Why not make them into war puppets and send them to the battlefield outside the domain, so that they can be his death squad?" Li Congxin was sweating. "Sister, you are really merciful. War puppets are a kind of walking corpse that has been stripped of life but still retains its strength." As expected of the Empress, she really puts her own interests first and pays attention to making the best use of everything. Quasi-emperor war puppets can only be made by the great emperor. Li Tianxin took out an ancient book and said, "Brother, this is a holy product, war puppet refining secret book, you can take it and learn it." "Okay." Li Congxin just reached out and touched the secret book. Ding! You are in the infinite lottery. Congratulations, you won the divine puppet refining technique in the lottery, the method of making the immortal soul puppet. Chapter 80. The body is completely destroyed but the will to fight remains forever. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Immortal spirit level soul puppet. The physical body is destroyed, the fighting spirit will last forever, he will not die in 100 battles, and he will not be afraid in 100 battles. Special reminder, soul puppets are at a higher level than war puppets. The undead level soul puppet is a secret treasure unmatched by any level of war puppet. Ding! The function of the skill is directly activated when reaching the full level. Tip, your soul puppet refining technique has reached full level. Li Congxin, who had just stretched out his hand, immediately heard a series of prompts from the system. That attitude was like an adult not allowing his children to reach out and take the candy given by outsiders. It made Li Congxin a little embarrassed. He complained in his mind, "That's my sister, why are you so excited?" Li Congxin has long been accustomed to the fact that the system refuses to accept anyone and asks everyone to get involved. However, generally the system will not give special prompts. He couldn't help but wonder, was it because his beautiful sister had just hugged him and squeezed and kissed him that the system was now very unhappy with his sister? Faced with a system that refused to admit defeat in his life, Li Congxin could only pretend that he suddenly remembered, "Oh, by the way, I know how to make puppets a long time ago." Like, Li Tianxin, Mo Xiangran, and Li Qingfeng all looked at him with suspicious eyes. If you know the skills you have learned, you know it, and if you don't know it, you don't know it. How can anyone seem to know how to do it? Doesn't he want to learn? So make excuses. If you don't want to learn, then don't learn. Li Tianxin immediately put the secret book back, and turned to hold Li Congxin's hand. She said charmingly, "Sister is about to go on a long trip. Let's go and take you to travel in the sea of stars." He is pampered and doted on, and will never go against Li Congxin's wishes. With her charming body leaning on Li Congxin's shoulder, she enjoyed the feeling that her brother had grown up, become stronger, and was more reliable. "I really think I can." Li Congxin smiled leisurely. One hand was held by Li Tianxin, facing the 8 quasi-emperors. He slowly stretched out the other hand. The power of the law wraps around the arms, and infinite power continues to converge on the 8 people. 100 meters away, the 8 quasi-emperors lying on the ground seemed to have been choked, their mouths wide open, but they could not make a sound, and their expressions were extremely uncomfortable. Buzz. The emperor's body was forcibly lifted up by a powerful force, floating in the void like a hanged ghost, kicking his feet wildly. A pair of pupils were filled with fear. Inside, I was extremely uneasy. With one glance, the 8 of them were sent flying. The hand of this young emperor contained the same power as the shackles of heaven. How can it be? How can this be? Logically speaking, such terrifying strength can only be possessed by an old emperor who is over 1,000,000 years old. Is this young man really Li Tianba's son? Impossible. Could it be that his true identity is one of the hidden ancestors of the Li family? In order to avoid the rules of heaven and earth, he is now manifested in a new body. In fact, he is the ancestor of Li Tianba. That must be it. Li Congxin had lowered his hand, but under the shackles of power he had set with his imperial power, the 8 quasi-emperors were still locked in the void, unable to move at all. Call out. Phew. Next, he flicked towards the emperor's bodies lined up in the air with one finger after another, one finger mark after another. The power can break through the sea, and the energy can split the 8 wastelands. Boom. 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 Bang bang bang. Every snap of his fingers was followed by a heaven-shattering explosion. In the deafening explosions, the bodies of the 8 quasi-emperors instantly fell apart, as if being torn into pieces, and they fell into pieces and fell to the ground. This scene made Li Tianxin and others shudder. Under Li Congxin, a group of quasi-emperors who had reached the pinnacle of cultivation were like a bunch of chickens and dogs. There is no ability to resist at all. However, he looked stunned again. Don't you want to refine more puppets? If the physical body is blown up, it means that all the materials have been used up. How can it be refined? Did you mess up? Li Tianxin leaned lightly and said with a nonchalant smile, "Forget it if it breaks down. I will ask my father to catch some quasi-emperors on the battlefield and let you test it slowly. It's just the beginning." Li Congxin smiled. The painful sound after being pinched by the throat was still ringing, and it was becoming more and more full of panic and fear. As the blood mist in the air dissipated, 8 soul bodies appeared in the void, still locked, twisting and groaning in pain as they struggled. You want to refine the soul puppet? Seeing this, Li Tianxin was shocked. It turns out that Li Congxin just decomposed their bodies, but their souls were not damaged at all. Soul puppets are a higher level, more powerful, and more perfect existence than war puppets. She didn't expect her brother to have such magical powers. I don't know if the 3-legged cat's kung fu is effective or not. Li Congxin spoke very modestly, and used the god-level soul puppet refining technique he had just learned. The 12 pairs of pupils turned into the pupil of truth, and the light continued to condense. Double pupils are an invincible treasure, let alone 10 pairs, so he directly used his eyes to refine the soul puppet. The light in his eyes suddenly released. Boom! 100 meters away, it looked like 8 gorgeous fireworks blooming. On the 8 soul bodies, a large number of colorful light spots exploded from the tempering power in his eyes, like stars shooting all over the sky. These starlight points are the essence of life, memory, 5 senses, etc. of the 8 quasi-emperors. Although fireworks are beautiful, they are fleeting. As those light spots dimmed and disappeared, the 8 souls in the void also became 8 dead spirits that only contained the cultivation of quasi-emperors, but without any life or memory. The sound of was no longer heard. At this moment, they were no longer human beings, but a kind of secret treasure that any strong man would covet. Li Qingfeng's mouth twitched. Boy, can this be called a 3-legged cat? Then your second uncle's ability is only a 1-legged cat. His tone was firm. no, half-legged cat. Second uncle is the god of war of Tianqin continent. How can he be a cat? He must be a tiger. While Li Congxin was chatting and laughing, a stream of mental power had been injected into the dead spirits. Next, under the power of his eyes, he began to seize the fortune and create objects. Pieces of black armor gradually appeared around the 8 souls, kaka. One by one, they moved towards those souls and were constantly inlaid together. Boom. The 8 sets of armor were ignited with blazing soul flames, refining completed, activated. Bang. Bang bang bang, with a snap of Li Congxin's fingers, 8 soul puppets that released a powerful killing aura fell in front of him like towers, lined up in a row. 8 soul puppets, wearing Fong ghost masks, wearing terrifying hell-pattern black armor, burning with more creepy deep black soul flames on the armor. There is no flesh in the armor, only a soul supporting it, no expression, no breath of life, only endless killing intent. The flesh is completely destroyed, and the fighting will last forever. 8 immortal soul puppets. People must keep their promises. If you want to get involved, you must keep your words. Now, they have truly fulfilled their oath. Follow the new emperor, be willing to serve him, fight for him with all their heart and soul. Is it done? Li Tianqin was a little uncertain, because it takes at least several months to temper and fuse a war puppet. Li Congxin spent less than half an incense stick of time. Well, it's done. Li Congxin nodded. From the production to the completion, he was always held by Li Tianqin's hand, and the whole process was completed with one hand. How strong is this soul puppet? Li Qingfeng couldn't help but look curious. How about I try it? Sure. Li Congxin nodded immediately. He also wanted to verify it. If it is strong enough, it can be mass-produced in the future. After all, my father's ideal is very big. But if it is too bad, then it's just a plea. Come on, let the 8 of them come together. Li Qingfeng was full of passion. Bang. He stepped on the ground and soared into the sky. It's not that he was arrogant, because before these 8 quasi-emperors died, if they fought 8, he was sure that he could forcibly kill them all. The same realm does not necessarily mean the same combat power. You know, everyone in the Li family is a super genius. How can they be compared with ordinary people? Li Qingfeng is the god of war of Tianqin continent, and he is not just a name. Li Congxin smiled and said, let's go one by one. If you feel that you can't hold on, I will add another one immediately. He pointed at a soul puppet at random, then pointed at Li Qingfeng in the air, and gave an order, fight. Boom. A terrifying soul flame several meters high suddenly burst out on the armor of the soul puppet. Standing on the ground, his arms shook, and he shouted without any emotion, one knife, cut the sky. Boom. A knife light, like a strong light that appeared in the dark night, instantly tore the space apart, constantly tore the sky and the earth into 2, and tore the vast and turbulent sky towards the sky. The 9 revengeful quasi-emperors from overseas, except for the water emperor who was killed by Li Congxin, the remaining ones were soul ancestor, blood ancestor, sword god, knife demon, gold emperor, wood emperor, fire emperor, and earth emperor. The soul puppet that attacked at this moment was the knife demon among the 8. Although he was dead, his attack methods, skills, combat skills, and magical powers were all retained, all turned into a mechanized form. His knife made Li Congxin narrow his eyes. So strong. Li Tianqin and Mo Xiangran both avoided behind him involuntarily, because the killing power released by the soul puppet when he attacked made them feel unusually domineering. The killing power made Li Congxin's hair fly in front of him.